Really excited to be spending the next hour or so with all of you. My name is Patrick Murphy. I'm Sierra Club's president and chair of our board, and I'm really privileged to be the host of today's discussion, which gives you all, our strongest and most steadfast supporters, a chance to hear directly from our leaders about key victories that Sierra Club celebrated and achieved in 2025. And these are victories that you helped make possible through your generous support throughout this year. I'm joined by Lauren Blackford, our new executive director, by Holly Bender, our chief program officer, and Dan Ritzman, our conservation director. I've been involved in Sierra Club for about 25 years, and that's really been out of a commitment to our unique impact and our role in the environmental movement. We bring together extraordinary policy insight that you'll hear today, alongside legal advocacy and true grassroots organizing that gives us the ability to shape decisions and achieve victories, not just at the national level, which is challenging right now, as we'll discuss, but also in cities and towns across the United States, which is an area where we're uniquely powerful, able to operate at all of those levels. So our movement faces real challenges. We all know this. But I personally, after 25 years in this organization, have never been more confident in Sierra Club's leadership, including the folks who are here with us today. And I've never been more hopeful about where we can go and where we're headed over the next several years. So Lauren, Dan, and Holly are exactly the leaders that this moment calls for. Steady, visionary, deeply rooted in Sierra Club's mission and our history and our values, and fully committed to building the power we need, not just to meet today's challenges, but also to forge the future ahead of us. So first, we'll hear from Lauren Blackford, and then that'll be followed by about 20 or 25 minutes in conversation with Holly and Dan. And that should leave us plenty of time for Q&A with all of you. And we've already received a lot of questions ahead of time from you as well, and we'll be digging into those together. So please continue to share your questions in the Q&A box, and we will get to as many of them as we can this morning. So with that, it's really a pleasure to introduce Lauren. Lauren has been a dedicated leader, volunteer, and supporter of Sierra Club for about 20 years. She really exemplifies so much of what makes Sierra Club special, starting as a volunteer at the local level in New York City. She's now served as Sierra Club's president, the chair of the Sierra Club Foundation, interim executive director, deputy executive director, and in Oakland, California in September, I was deeply proud and happy to be able to preside over the board's historic and unanimous vote to appoint Lauren as Sierra Club's 8th executive director and our first female executive director in the organization's history. So with that, I want to pass the mic to you, Lauren, and we gave you a standing ovation when the board made that vote, and I'm thrilled to be able to, support you and uplift you on the stage today.
Thank you so much, Patrick. Thank you for your leadership. It's been wonderful to serve with you for quite a while as a board member and now in our current roles. Thank you to Holly and Dan. Excited about this conversation. And thanks to all of you for joining. I'm Lauren Blackford, she, her pronouns. I'm from New York City. And as Patrick mentioned, I've been around for a while, worn a lot of different hats, but I am really deeply honored and excited to be serving now as Sierra Club's executive director, first female executive director. We have an incredible team, and it is just so wonderful to be working here in this moment with all of our staff and volunteers and with all of you. So I don't have to tell you about how tumultuous these times are. All of us are living it. We are seeing a federal government that is waging relentless attacks on our environment, on our communities, on our democracy that we depend on to do our work every day. I know that some of you have read a New York Times article about the Sierra Club a couple weeks back, and some have questions about that. So we will come back to that later. I'll just quickly say that was it was a backward-facing article that did provide some misleading information about where we are in terms of our finances, our staffing, and most of all, our focus. I would say a silver lining is it's been really a rallying cry, and I feel that our community is really showing up stronger than ever and really pulling together. And today you're going to be hearing a lot about what we're doing and how focused, committed, and powerful Sierra Club is right now. Um, we're in this moment that not just Sierra Club, but the movement more broadly has really been requiring new tactics, a broader movement, more people power than ever before. Um, and this is what Sierra Club is really made for. We are unique in terms of our grassroots presence in every state, with chapters in every state, people working in every state house, combined with really our national campaigns, which you'll hear about today, our capacities, our legal, our advocacy, our communications, and you'll hear today about all the many ways, or a few of the many ways, that we're really delivering. This is not the first time in Sierra Club's 133-year history that we have been tested. And once again, we're meeting this moment with resilience, courage, determination, and adaptation. We're able to meet the moment in the way that's required, and that's what we're doing now. So Sierra Club's really been a leading force in pushing back and holding the line against some of the worst federal attacks. And these defensive victories really matter. Without the mass grassroots organizing, lobbying, litigation, the consequences for our public lands, wildlife, climate, and communities would just be tremendous. But we're also not just playing defense. We're advancing real solutions in states and communities across the country with our chapters, our members, our partners across the country. Here in Washington, D.C., where I am right now, in Puerto Rico. We've really been able to pivot when federal action stalled and continue to make real progress to our climate and conservation goals. So looking ahead to 2026 and beyond, I personally feel incredibly inspired and deeply confident in Sierra Club's ability to meet the most urgent and important challenges of our time. We hold such rich expertise, reach, and people power to confront the climate crisis with both the speed and the scale that it demands, to help halt the biodiversity crisis, and to protect our public lands from privatization, to advance environmental justice, ensure clean air, clean water, and affordability for every community, to ensure that every child and people from all communities and all walks of life have access to the healing power of nature. This work is not just about this year, next year, even the next 3 years, because part of what we're doing is building enduring power, drawing from our strengths as the nation's largest and most influential grassroots environmental organization to defend our lands, air, water, wildlife, climate, our communities, and our democracy, not just for now, but for generations to come. So I personally am here and have been here for such a long time because I so deeply believe in the power of the Sierra Club's millions of dedicated members, staff, volunteers, and of course, supporters like you. Our ability together to defend what matters most. And so as some of our top supporters, I want to just really thank you from the start for standing with us. These victories are yours to celebrate. We are stronger together. And together with your continued support, we will build a brighter, a more just, and a more sustainable future. Thanks for being with us today. Patrick?
Thank you, Lauren, and thanks for stepping into this role and answering the call in this moment. I think one of the things that unites us is that we know that this nation needs a strong Sierra Club, and I'm grateful that you're stepping into the role and believe fiercely that you are the person who can enable us to make that happen. So I'm excited now to hear directly from Dan and Holly, who are leading our energy and conservation efforts. And I'm going to turn first to Dan. So Dan, I mean, you and I have shared a lot of work in the lands area. It's where I first got involved as a student activist. You've been with Sierra Club for over 18 years, leading victories and leading fights that this organization has been in. And as the director of our conservation campaigns, you lead our efforts now to protect our lands, our water, and our wildlife. And this year brought really big people-powered victories for those lands, for those waters and wildlife, both in defending what's under threat and advancing proactive conservation goals. And I'd love to hear you start by highlighting a few of the most meaningful wins from our conservation campaigns this year and what made them possible in this moment.
Great. Thanks, Patrick. And yeah, it's great to be here. Thanks everyone for joining on this call. I think speak for all of us. We really couldn't do the work we do without the support of folks like all of you on this call. So I'm deeply appreciated to everything you've done for the club. And like Patrick said, I've been here for 18 years at the club, and I came to the club because we are a grassroots powerhouse. I learned conservation a long time ago. It's scary to admit. But I was doing work to protect the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. I was living in Fairbanks, Alaska. We saw the Arctic as our backyard. I worked for a little group called the Northern Alaska Environmental Center. And following in the footsteps of the greatest grassroots activist of all time, Lenny Colm, I was doing slideshows around the lower 48 about why the Arctic was important. And you know, if you're from Alaska and you want to talk to people in Illinois about why their congressman matters about for the Arctic Refuge, you know what you do? You call the Sierra Club. That's the first thing you do. And so I gave numerous presentations to Sierra Club chapters all over the country. And it was a real privilege to be able to come to this organization and continue that people-powered conservation fight. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about how that is still what we're doing. We are engaging people to win on the environment. And, you know, 2025, it's a year that's pretty dominated by the Trump administration, but I'm going to go way back to January of 2025 to start this and talk about the end of the previous administration, the end of the Biden administration. And in January of 2025, we saw two really great people-powered victories. We saw new national monuments designated in California in the Satitla area, and then in Chuckwalla in the Southern California deserts, the area that I grew up in. And this was like the culmination of 4 years of the Biden administration, where we saw over 55 million acres of land protected, over 600 million acres of our coastal waters and oceans. And I'm super fond of saying that all of that conservation didn't happen because one person showed up with a really good map or one scientist made the exact right argument. Those acres, those 55 million acres, happened because people got organized and got involved and their voices were amplified from the local level. And that's what the Sierra Club does. So the Chuckwalla monument's a really good example of that. Our chapters in Southern California, the San Gorgonio and San Diego chapters, had been working on that landscape for years and had built this conservation movement. And with the tribal leadership on that front over decades, they built this demand for protection of this incredible landscape outside of Joshua Tree National Park. Our organizer there led numerous hikes and forays into that landscape, introduced it to members of the Chamber of Commerce, got sign-on letters from the chamber, from local businesses, from all these people, ultimately able to convince the administration to protect over 500,000 acres of land in that precious environment. So we started the year off on a big high note. Shortly, though, we were introduced to the Trump administration, which felt like a little bit of deja vu to some of us who'd been around through the Trump one, but I don't think any of us really saw or anticipated just the fervor with which they would go after things. And I've heard the phrase flood the zone quite a bit over this year, and that is exactly what this administration is doing. They are going after every single thing at a pace that's really hard to keep up with. We saw very early on executive orders on more drilling, more mining, more logging, and then more mining, more drilling, more logging. It was this unending push. We saw the Doge. I know we don't talk about Doge much anymore, but it was there laying off people, causing a lot of uncertainty. And the Sierra Club responded early on through the courts. We were part of the first environmental focus litigation with the Trump administration to protect some victories we'd had in the offshore protections. And we engage in lawsuits around the Doge layoffs to make sure that the stewards of our public lands were able to keep these places protected. Um, we saw Trump put agency leadership that are just a bunch of exploitation grifters. They're out there just doing everything um, for their business friends, for their billionaire friends. They're looking to change the laws. They're looking to open up our public lands and really I like to think about put public lands on its head. Our public lands are unique. It's an idea that's very popular in the US that these lands are for the people. Like back in the day in Europe, these public lands or special lands were put aside for royalty, for the king, for the queen. We've developed a process where these lands are for the people, for all of us. And this administration is trying to give them back to the elite. And we saw that very obviously in the big, beautiful bill, where there are components of that legislation that looked to sell off really hundreds of millions of acres of our public lands to put them out there for the benefit of individuals, for businesses, for the elite. And this was really probably our biggest victory and really set the roadmap for us for this year in the public land space. We saw people come together, organize, and build public demand for protecting these lands, for not selling them off. And we saw our chapters organize rallies across the country in red states and in purple states and in blue states. We saw people organized and going to town halls for their elected representatives. We saw people um, them go visit their elected representatives' offices so much that they would close their office or that they would not open it up. They're like, we're afraid of these people. We also had people travel back to DC to meet with them in DC. This public lands um, movement really came together and pressured people so much that they took that sell-off out of the big beautiful bill. A huge victory. And really, again, it tells us that playbook for winning in this administration. It's all about organizing the public. We took that playbook and moved on to their attempt to dismantle the roadless rule, which is Clinton era protections for 56 million acres of our national forests. And again, they've tried to rescind that, to roll that back. And we saw people organized and turn out in droves. They tried to cut the people out. They gave us like a 2-week comment period for their plans. And we still generated over 500,000 comments from Americans across the country of all walks of life about the importance of the roadless rule. This included tens of thousands of personalized comments, personalized letters about why these forests mattered for their mental health, for clean drinking water, for places to recreate, for wildlife habitat. And again, we're seeing that this way of organizing and people power is working. We've heard that they are scaling back their attacks on the roadless rule. We're hopeful that as this next year goes along and we continue this fight, that we will be able to claim another victory for protecting our forests. And as Lauren said, and Patrick said, while we're doing this at the federal level, we're continuing to win at the local level on conservation issues as well. We in Washington State, working with our chapter and our organizers on the ground, we protected 77,000 acres of state forest lands, put that into conservation protections. In Georgia, the chapter scored some huge victories on long-term fights to protect the Okefenokee Swamp. They participated in a campaign that bought out a mining threat from that area. And then in Illinois, our chapters passed wetland protections to protect our wetlands that were unprotected by the Supreme Court in their Sackett Clean Water Act decisions. And then lastly, in Colorado, I'll highlight that the chapter there helped pass legislation that protected, excuse me, that protected wild bison in Colorado for the first time ever. So great wildlife victories on the local level as well. So super important work happening federal level, locally, and really it's all about organizing people and the power of people.
Thank you, Dan. And I think that's one of the things that that brings us to Sierra Club and keeps us supporting and committing ourselves to Sierra Club is that the fact that we engage in these fights and we win these victories through people power. And Sierra Club is uniquely positioned to do that around the country. I want to turn to Holly, and I think we hear a similar story with energy and also a lot of other complexities. And as the federal government is doing everything they possibly can to cater to big oil, gas, and coal, our energy teams are using every resource that's possible to fight back and continue our progress toward clean energy and toward the future that our planet and our communities need. Holly, you've been with Sierra Club for 18 years as well, serving in a number of key roles. And a lot of your impact has been in our energy campaigns. Now you're our chief program officer, overseeing all of our national campaigns focused on energy, climate, conservation, and the outdoors. So as we're coming to the end of the year, could you share a few major accomplishments from our energy campaigns for 2025?
Thanks, Patrick. Hi, everyone. As noted, I'm Holly Bender, she, her, our Chief Program Officer. And I am always pleasantly reminded that Dan and I think, must have started really right around the same time. So what a privilege to be on with Dan. I loved your story, Dan, of just like that, if you need grassroots power, that you go to the Sierra Club. I came to the Sierra Club also out of awe and admiration for the organization, but from a different aspect. I read case after case after case in my environmental law classes in law school that said things like Sierra Club versus, and fill in the name, whether it was Sierra Club versus Morton and the big precedent-setting cases about standing, Sierra Club versus the land managers selling off our forests, our public lands. It is an absolute privilege and honor to be at this historic organization and to be playing this role. So I will, however, tell you a little bit about what it's like to be an energy campaigner. And for the folks on this call, you probably know a little bit about what it's like out there. And so if you see somebody who's an energy campaigner, check in on them, maybe buy them a coffee. It is a hard time to be out there trying to advance electric vehicle programs, stop new fossil infrastructure, retire power plants so that we can replace them with clean energy. Just last night, the Department of Energy, put forward yet another fake energy emergency to keep a coal plant online in Washington that we have been planning to retire for 15 years or so. No surprises, lots of planning. So here we are. I am, however, hopeful. I'm an optimistic person by nature. And I'm genuinely feeling buoyed by what we've been able to accomplish in these last 9 months as the new administration has gotten settled. We've shifted our strategies. We are making progress. So I'm feeling very firm. My feet are firmly planted on the ground, very clear-eyed, and in fact, dare I say, hopeful. So let me tell you a little bit about what we've been up to. I loved how Lauren started by saying these are your victories to celebrate. Please celebrate along with us. I don't think you can use your clapping emojis, but maybe just to yourself. So I want to start with something that I'm incredibly proud of, and I think demonstrates the Sierra Club's breadth, and also we're not just a national organization that works on national policy, but also a very local and state-based organization that can pivot quickly to make a big difference. I want to tell you about actually a set of lawsuits we've now filed to support the expansion of electric vehicle charging infrastructure. If you have an EV, you know somebody who has an EV, or you're working on electrification policy, you probably know that the cars are great and they have to get plugged in. In a lot of communities around the country, we still don't have adequate infrastructure for people to feel as though this transition can happen. The way to solve that, and there's been great reporting about how far we've come already, is to fund electric vehicle infrastructure. There was lots of funding in the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act and the Inflation Reduction Act. States are really taking leadership roles. The Trump administration came in and really attempted quickly to roll back the billions of dollars in investment. The Sierra Club moved quickly. We worked with more than 17 states, and the state attorneys general were able to do that because we have relationships with these folks already. Our lawyers, our activists, our lobbyists, our state directors know the AG's offices. We were able to file one of the first lawsuits out of the gate to stop one of the Trump administration's rollbacks of billions of dollars in infrastructure spending. And we dealt them one of their first losses in court. Ultimately, a court agreed with the Sierra Club and the states and sort of ordered that at least $1 billion out of the gate needs to get deployed to states so that they can invest in electric vehicle infrastructure. Hot off the presses just yesterday, we filed yet another lawsuit to get charging and fueling infrastructure spending unlocked again, something that was frozen by the Trump administration. And one of the really incredible things about this program is that it is really geared towards filling in gaps in our electric vehicle infrastructure that support areas where those investments are not being made, lower income areas, rural communities that are not the first ones to receive this infrastructure. And these are states who have raised their hand and said, hey, we want this funding. We want to make this transition. I'm really proud of the team of folks. Catherine Garcia leads our Clean Transportation for All campaign. And they did not skip a beat. In the face of hostile opposition from the Trump administration, this team pivoted quickly to a state-based strategy, took the Trump administration to court. They have already won an important decisive victory, and I hope that 2026 will bring even more of those. So, clap emoji. I also want to talk a little bit about some of the places you might not hear about in the press where we do this work. One of the things that's really unique to the Sierra Club is that we work everywhere, really all 50 states, and we're not afraid to go where the work is really hard. And so I want to tell you about two cases we're doing in West Virginia and Utah against all odds, where we have worked to garner huge amounts of grassroots engagement to stop big rate hikes that are happening in these two states, West Virginia and Utah in particular, where utilities are coming in and they're saying, hey, we need a 15% rate increase, a 30% rate increase in the case of Utah. As you all know, affordability is a key issue right now. Everyone is experiencing it. It is top of mind for most people. And one of the places where people are experiencing the challenges the most is in their electric bills. Electric utility bills are up 30% year over year this year. People are really experiencing this challenge. So we've seized on the opportunity to organize more people that would not come to a rate case hearing if you invited them, telling them about the climate impact of their utility, are absolutely showing up to rate cases when you talk to them about the fact that their utility could be saving them money by transitioning to clean energy. We have flipped the script and flipped the narrative, and the engagement levels that we're seeing out there in places like West Virginia and Utah are unprecedented, to be perfectly honest. It's really energizing. And of course, I'm sharing these two examples with you because we had really big wins in both states. We were able to successfully knock down the rate increases and also get the commissions to say pretty directly to the utilities, you can't keep coming to us with investments in gas. You can't keep coming to us with investments in coal. We really need to see you taking seriously the path forward. So I'm really proud of that work, and I think it showcases the Sierra Club in some significant and special ways. The last thing I'll talk about in terms of victories from this year is really a testament to the way that we've been seeing the shifting landscape from some of the federal venues that we were engaged in the Biden administration to needing to take our work into the state, state public service commissions, state counties. And that pivot has happened really successfully in the case of gas pipelines in North Carolina. Our North Carolina team is fighting the SSEP, which is a Southern Connecting Gas Pipeline owned by one of the big gas distribution companies, Transco. We've been fighting that plant at the federal level, at the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, but with the change of administration, we knew we had to take it local. We've built really durable organizing work in the states by bringing people into county commission proceedings. 5 counties have now passed resolutions opposing this pipeline. These are bipartisan environments. This is definitely some more conservative parts of North Carolina, and in particular, one county that had previously supported the pipeline went so far as to shift its position entirely to oppose. So I share these wins, giving you sort of a breadth of litigation, organizing, shifting our narrative to talking about affordability, meeting people where they are, and continuing to bring people into the climate movement. When this movement needs a shot in the arm, I do believe that we have shifted our strategies to really take seriously the ways in which we bring people in. Dan's work is deeply inspiring, and he gave you dozens of those examples. And hopefully these examples from our energy work give you a few more, a little bit more flavor and some of the ideas for how we continue to take really seriously this opportunity to lead through really, really challenging and tough times.
Thank you, Holly. I'm grateful to hear these wins, and particularly these wins in places that, a lot of observers from outside Sierra Club and outside the movement may have thought would be unlikely places for Sierra Club to achieve these kind of impacts. And, as we've discussed, this year has been tough. It's inspiring to hear how we've continued to make progress in blue states, in red states, in cities and towns across the country. I'm going to move to one last question for our panel and tee up a question here for Lauren, and then we'll move into the Q&A. So, Lauren, we've been hearing about how Holly's teams and Dan's teams and all of our campaign leaders and volunteers around the country have really been, putting people power into communities and winning victories. And at the same time, the challenges that we face and the headwinds that are there that are real, particularly with this administration. As our new executive director, can you share your vision for leading Sierra Club in this moment and through everything that lies ahead of us in 2026 and beyond, and speak to the steady power of our movement and Sierra Club's kind of unique success formula?
Yeah, happy to. Well, first, a big part is keep doing more of this. I hope that you will have enjoyed hearing about some of, and this really is just some of the things that have been happening in this year, in such a tough year. But we are in a place, we and other groups, and have been in coalition with the heads of really all the environmental groups, and everybody is sort of taking a step back and looking at how do we meet this moment, because what we're doing now, how we're approaching it now, is very different than a year ago. And so we've been giving thought to what things would look like. And in Sierra Club's case, we have a 2030 strategic framework. We had done a long-term sort of planning, and our goals really continue to be the same goals, but it's really a question of what are the strategies, what are the tactics that we're finding are working in this year that we can build on more, and what do we need to do for the next couple of years. And a huge piece of that is what you're hearing. It's like organize, organize, organize. Like Sierra Club is known as being this organizing powerhouse. It's in states, on the ground, in local communities, and it's at the campaign level. And this is something like Sierra Club has known how to do this a really long time. We have really some tremendous leaders in this. And at the same time, we're looking at how should we be adjusting? Like it's something we know how to do, but times are changing. We've been through the pandemic, technology is changing. And so we're really trying to sort of bring the best of what we've known how to do and marry it with where do we need to be going forward. And so we're really taking a deep, close look at that. And then how do the different pieces fit together? And Holly really touched on some of the core components of we need to be actively driving climate solutions. Like we know it's not enough just to stop the bad things. Like, yes, with this administration, we have to sort of dig deep and prevent the build out of a whole new set of fossil fuel infrastructure that would be locked in for a long time. And we certainly know about how to stop things, and we will be doing that, particularly on public lands. But we also know that we need to be promoting the solutions. And so that's something we've been doing, and we're really sort of digging in more about how do we build out the climate solutions that really work for our communities and that work for our conservation goals as well. Clearly, you've been hearing a lot about the conservation work and the outings work. That is core to what Sierra Club does. For so many people, coming with Sierra Club and getting out in nature is their relationship with the organization. And we understand that that's important in even new ways than it has been before. We all need the healing power of nature. We need that ability to come together in community, to meet this moment, to inspire that awe. So and that will include also some additional outings that you all can join us with. I highly recommend taking an outing with Dan Ritzman if you ever get a chance, and other folks as well. But that is so important to who we are and how we take care of our own community and the communities we work with. So that still remains at the center of what we do. Communications is going to be a key component, really helping people understand where we are and what we're doing, but also what this moment requires. And Holly spoke to some of that too. Like, we really do need to meet people where they are in this moment. People are very concerned about affordability. People are very concerned about health issues. And there's a lot of information we have. Like, we know about the millions of asthma attacks and heart attacks that are prevented from the work we've already done, stopping coal plants. So really building that out as well, as a broader movement, working with partners in labor, partners in the clean energy sector, partners in conservation. So that's a piece we're going to be diving into. And kind of, how does this work all fit together? Our traditional environmental work, our climate work, our work in communities, our focus on justice. How is this a powerful whole? And so we're really working on that, weaving that tapestry all together more clearly and having that more clarity on what is the vision and direction. But those are kind of the key components that we're working on. And then, of course, to achieve the strategy, the vision, the priorities we have for the coming year and the coming couple of years, we are also digging deeper on how are we growing the revenue? How are we continuing to build membership? People are looking for the places to engage and the places to invest, and they're looking for that vision and clarity. And so we're going to be working within our community. We've been doing the work already, but we're working in our community to be able to clearly articulate that for everybody who is looking for their place to be. And so many of us, this is our place that we believe in, and we're sharing that with others as well. Back to you, Patrick.
Thank you, Lauren. And thank you, Holly and Dan, all three of you, for all that you're doing to protect our home, and for shining hope and light as we reflect on all we faced this year, and also everything we've achieved. So we're now moving to our audience Q&A. I want to thank you all, to everyone who submitted questions ahead of time, and also folks who have submitted questions already during the course of this conversation. Please continue to do that with the Q&A function you'll see in Zoom. And I want to turn first to Dan with a question. We're going to try and keep responses to about 3 minutes or so that we can hit as many questions as possible from attendees. But there are some things that are really burning among these questions. And the first one I really want to focus on is for you, Dan. What are some of the biggest challenges we're facing today and that we expect to face in 2026? And how is Sierra Club stepping up to be involved in those fights? How are we really stepping into those?
Yeah, thanks, Patrick. And yeah, great question. So, I mentioned the flood the zone strategy, and that strategy continues and is going to continue with this administration into 2026. And right now, across the spectrum of lands, water, and wildlife work, we are seeing these threats. And I think as this goes on, you're going to see some opportunities for action taking in the chat. But we have threats to the Endangered Species Act, one of our most core bedrock laws out there that have protected hundreds of species of animals from extinction. And right now, the Trump administration is trying to rewrite those rules, and there's an open comment period for, I think, 5 more days that you can take action and tell them it's a bad idea. We need the ESA. We also know we're going to see legislative threats on the ESA. They're going to try to delist iconic species like the grizzly bear legislatively, and they're going to try to rewrite the act itself. And so we're going to need everybody's help piling in, joining in with the people power conservation to push back on that. We're seeing the same thing in offshore drilling, another open comment period. So coast of California, Trump wants to open it up for drilling. coast of Florida, places where we have never had offshore drilling, wants to open it up to offshore drilling. So another chance for people to get engaged. And the last one I'll touch on, I think, is the waters of the US. So, law that's protected our wetlands and our rivers and streams for decades. They are trying to roll that back. They're going to, it's something like 8 million miles of rivers that they're going to remove, or streams that they're going to remove protections from, and something like half of our wetlands. So another open comment period and a chance to dig in. But yeah, looking forward, we're looking to build and keep this team of grassroots activists that are focused on all of these threats that are coming up. Hope that was 3 minutes.
Oh, this is perfect, Dan. And a perfect summary of some of the biggest issues that we're facing, and really want to bring people together around. You've heard from Dan, Holly, and Lauren about kind of the themes of people power and impact despite the challenges from the administration and on the national level. And we've also had a lot of questions about that, about how we're still making an impact during this administration. Anne put it really well in a question that was submitted asking, what are the chances that the places we love and humanity depends on for long-term survival actually survive this administration? And that question really kind of, hit me deeply. And I want to turn to you, Holly, and ask, can you share where you're finding hope in this context and with the threats we're facing? And how are you guiding our campaigns to make strategic pivots to respond to those threats?
Thanks, Anne, for the question. So I'm going to answer this in two ways. I'm going to tell you why I'm hopeful, and I'm going to tell you what our strategy is. Because actually, the fact that we have a strategy to win is part of what makes me hopeful. But I want to just talk about pure hope for a moment. I don't think people like what's happening. I don't think that the broad swaths of our neighbors and friends and family and community members agree with what is going on. And I'll just tell you a little bit about my family. I have a pretty conservative family. I grew up spending a lot of time in the woods, lots of hunting. The attempts to sell off our public lands were radically unpopular with members of my family and other sort of conservative communities that we often can't find alignment on things like energy transition. And so that brought me a lot of hope in thinking about the model of this organization, its approach to things like conservation and lands, the deep work we do in partnership, that there's a lot of common ground out there that we haven't sort of unearthed quite yet. The other thing that gives me hope, and part of the reason I believe people find that this approach to energy, environment, conservation is deeply unpopular, is what happened in the recent elections in New Jersey and Virginia. Overwhelmingly, Donald Trump showed up in the sort of days leading up to the election, and in both New Jersey and Virginia told voters to vote for Republicans so their energy bills would go down. Those are almost verbatim words used by the president, arguing that Republicans had the strategy to reduce energy bills. Voters didn't buy it. They know it's not true. And so that gives me a boost and a buoy going into 2026, thinking about where people are. So that gives me a lot of hope. But I will also just tell you, I don't know if anyone knows Dr. Ayanna Elizabeth Johnson, an oceanographer and someone who is just an incredible advocate in the climate space. She will tell you that sort of hope is not what we need. We need a strategy. And I'm the kind of person that agrees with that. So we've been making some really, I think we've been taking stock in the fact that we maybe thought the second Trump administration would feel a lot like the first. And that hasn't been true. I'll admit that, I have been a bit surprised at the sort of the level of attack on things like clean energy that even many Republicans in Congress had previously supported. So we're pretty clear-eyed now about our strategic pivots. I'll just name them. I won't spend a lot of time talking about them. But we are sort of implementing them across our work. The first pivot is defense. Where we were on offense for 4 years, we are now on defense Defense is a strategy. It is a full strategy, and it's an important strategy. It's not only strategy, but it is really critical to name. Dan talked about what we're fighting to protect. I talked a little bit about the NEVI lawsuit as an example of defending against rollbacks. We're also changing the playing fields. Pivot number 2, change the playing field. It's the kind of work I talked about, going from federal venues to state venues, building organizing power and winning in state places. We know how to do that. The third, change the narrative. This is the stories of affordability. This is the stories of the lands for the people. This is the stories about how clean energy is building communities. We have a narrative, we have a story to tell, and we're really focused on telling it. We're very, very focused on pivot number 4, which is to focus on solutions. The Sierra Club is really shifting its orientation to show up to support clean energy in the same way it has historically shown up to stop bad ideas and devastating projects. I'm really incredibly proud of the work we are doing in states across the country to go to zoning board meetings and raise our hands and say, we need clean energy in this community. It takes a lot of organizing power to do that, and we're making that shift. And the last one you've heard us talk a lot about, it's organizing, it's building, it's engaging people, it's building membership. It's building more powerful coalitions, and it's giving people the reason to feel hopeful so that they stay in this fight. It can feel hard out there, but it's a lot more fun when you're doing it with people. And I think that's one of the things the Sierra Club brings to the movement, is the opportunity to do things in community.
Thanks, Holly. And one of the things that really shines through for me in all of this is just Sierra Club's unique ability to mobilize people, but to do so in a way that's really both agile at different levels and different places and different communities, but also long term, right? Where we're building these relationships over time. We're not just parachuting in. And that's the essence of who we are, really being a part of communities. Lauren, on that note, I want to turn to you and ask, we've received some questions about how do we help ensure that people's voices and their votes reflect the urgency of the environmental crises and climate crises that we're facing and that communities are facing now. Can you share a little bit about how we're working to protect democracy, how we're working to provide nonpartisan voter education, engage in issue advocacy, and really elevate our issues and environmental concerns in the hearts and minds of people across the country?
Absolutely. And yeah, I mean, Holly, you have spoken to a lot of that. Patrick, you touched on it as well. And I think it's important to remember that Sierra Club, in addition to being this really powerful environmental organization, is one of the big movement organizations in this country. And so the fact that we are in all of these communities, and that we're helping people engage. And so there are some people that will come and they'll come into our work and they're always going to engage in the same way. They want to protect their local park, or, they have one piece. They want to go to the public utility commissions. And I think we're pretty unusual in the number of people that we can really mobilize, and some pretty technical stuff. And then we have other people that they are all about elections, and and we have political committees in a lot of our chapters, and the fact that we are a C4 organization, and there's C3, so we need to be careful about what things we talk about and what spaces, but the fact that we have these different components and people can engage in different ways. And so what we find is a lot of people, they need to just be active. And I really want to emphasize something that Holly said about how important it is to be active in community. This is an overwhelming moment. There's so much coming at us, so many things we have to push back on at the same time. To feel that you're doing that as part of something bigger is really important. And so people can come in and they may want to work on one particular area. And while some of them will stick with that always, others will pivot back and forth, which is a really important part of our political power. Part of how we're protecting democracy is we are outspoken. Like, this is clearly a piece of what we do. We are not backing down. People within the Sierra Club and our allies are looking to us to be bold, to keep, whether it's in the courthouses, whether it's in the streets, whether it's in the sort of public sector sphere, for us to be to not back away from that and say, like, we need a strong democracy to enable us to do all this work. And that's a really key point of our messaging. It's part of what we've been saying in public statements, and we will stand with that. And then for us to keep educating people, certainly educate people on the issues, educate people on how they can engage, help people understand compliance issues. So we are doing all of that work. And we are, again, like meeting people where they are. We're helping do the connectivity between the different issues, understand why are climate issues top of mind. Even if you're thinking first and foremost, maybe about affordability issues, health issues, or jobs, why is climate a key component of that? And Sierra Club, I think, does a really good job about making those connections, and that's something we're looking to do even more. So as people are thinking about their advocacy, their voting, that is in mind. We are at a moment where we're hearing some pushback on that. And again, I'm in Washington now. I was in the Hill yesterday, and we have tremendous champions, but there are some folks that are saying, well, maybe we shouldn't talk about climate change so much now. Maybe we really need to be talking about just the affordability and the healthcare. And Sierra Club is one of, I think, the strongest voices connecting those pieces and say, absolutely, we have to talk about the issues that people are thinking about, but climate is such an important part of it. Protecting our environment is such an important part of it. So we're doing that connectivity. And we're seeing results. Holly talked about the election results, but also you see the number of people that turned out for No King's Day. I mean, that was a huge, we're getting to a point of critical mass of people turning out and saying, we care about these issues. And they're doing that in ways that are nonviolent, that are peaceful, that are joyous. And so Sierra Club is part of those bigger mobilizations. And so we really we connect the dots and are a place that you can come to this as your home to engage in one way, and then we'll help you engage in others as well.
Thank you, Lauren. As we wrap up, I want to just do a quick lightning round question to our panelists. So just very briefly, Dan, you've hit on some of this, but what are some things that people can do right now to have an impact?
Thanks. And so we shared those action alerts. There's a lot of that, but just to feed off of what Lauren said, which is really inspiring. Like my lightning round is show up, right? Like it's like look for these opportunities, show up. It feels really good to be in community with these folks out there and visible. So, and if you want opportunities, feel free to reach out to me and I can help connect you to opportunities to show up wherever you are.
And Holly, how can donors and members help your teams advance this work? Where do you see financial support having the most impact in 2026?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you're all joining this call because you're supporting this work. You are part of the engine that fuels this organization, that allows us to do what we do. So please keep doing that. The resources that our donors provide give us what we need to do the work that we just described. We spend that money on making phone calls to decision makers. We turn people out. Dan's team does an incredible job sending people to the Hill every year to bring the stories from the field to the ears of decision makers. We have analysts, lawyers. I won't go on. You know this all. So the resources that we need right now are to continue this work, to pivot on defense, to hire more organizers, to ensure we can litigate in these venues that many people don't show up in at all and meet people where they are. So resources for our conservation team, our outdoors team, not directly represented on this call, is also getting veterans outdoors, engaging families and young people in building their love of nature. And the last thing I'll say is, as a donor here and helping to catalyze the work of this organization, I'm just going to make the assumption that you all are change makers in your communities. And to Dan's point, get active. And I would add, figure out what it is you love about this work. Is it the people? Is it getting outdoors? Is it making change? And reconnect with that, because we need everybody connected with their purpose so we can go headstrong into the year ahead.
And Lauren, I want to give the last 30-second question to you from the panel and really just invite you to share with us how can people fuel this Sierra Club work to actually reach even more people in 2026.
Well, as always, talk to your friends. We introduce us. Like you got a great group of folks here. We want to talk to more people. So help us make those connections, but also like keep in touch with us yourselves. Let us know what you think. Let us know what you think about what we said today. Let us know what you think about the work we're doing, about the future direction. I mean, this really is a moment, like what we've been saying is like what we really need is people to engage. So starting with you who have been with us, who have supported us, and then expanding out. So with your help, we're really looking forward to talking to more and more folks and sharing more as this continues to evolve.
Thank you, Lauren. Thank you for your strategic leadership in this critical moment. It's really the opportunity of a lifetime for me to be able to partner with you and uplift you and your direction for this organization. Dan, Holly, thank you for all of your time and leadership with your teams and all of these critical areas and the incredible work that all of you are doing. And thanks to everyone for joining. Your support and your commitment make it possible for all of the work you heard today to happen, even in the most challenging of circumstances, and to carry that work forward in 2026. I hope you'll join me in continuing to support the organization and its work of really advancing bold and just climate solutions and protecting our lands, our waters, and our wildlife. So with that, all of us, please accept our sincere wishes for you to have a wonderful holiday season and New Year. Thank you so much for joining us today.